definition of leadership is the influence and impact I have on the people around me, then we're all doing it. We're coming from hurt, and the whole hurt people concept, so often unknowingly or unintentionally. But even when we know, the challenge is we don't know what to do with it because it's all we know.
You are listening to the 5 a.m. podcast, and today is your day. Welcome back to the 5 a.m. podcast, the space where we unpack what it truly takes to operate at our highest potential in life, in business, and leadership, and family. Using the word highest, ladies and gentlemen, is not meant to put pressure on anyone. As you know, I'm your host, Michael Klassen. I'm looking forward to a great conversation today. But before we jump in, if you haven't already, please do us a quick favor, hit that follow or subscribe button on whatever streaming or watching platform you might be finding us on. We appreciate it. And that simple gesture of the follow or the subscription, it just ensures that you never miss these wonderful deep dives and great conversations and strategies into living the, let's say, utmost in our lives with authenticity, love, and light. Now, today we're exploring perhaps a side of leadership that's rarely talked about with enough honesty, and it's leading with emotional clarity, courage, and care for our fellow humans. Our guest today has spent over 2 decades helping others, especially men, strip away the shells, the armor, that hard, non-candy coated surround that some of us have to do, and be able to share and live in authenticity. Now, Trevor is a dad. He's a partner. He's a leadership coach and the co-founder of Conscious Lead. He's also the visionary behind the Fundamental and Adventure coaching experiences. So Trevor's approach to leadership didn't start in a sterile boardroom. In fact, it started on a farm, similar perhaps to some of my upbringing, where teamwork and responsibility were daily survival traits. And it was forged across global expeditions, overland travel, and oceans crossings as an adventure guide. He blends deep emotional intelligence and humor and play, proving that growth doesn't have to be too heavy to lift into a life-changing experience. Today, he's on a mission to help people get better results, hurt less, and have way more fun along the way. Trevor, welcome to the 5 a.m. podcast.
Thank you, Michael. A real pleasure to be here.
Yes. So, love the farming talk. That's actually where the 5 a.m. podcast comes from, and that lovely sunrise orange, as the case might be. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. So I learned to love early mornings. My parents would not give us curfews. They gave us responsibilities. Can you talk a little bit about that formative life experience that came from you being on a farm?
Sure. And I don't know, how similar that is, but it's a double-edged sword, certainly for me. Many things linger and carry on, some which have helped me get here, and some which may be the same things that hold me back from where I want to be. But I love that about no curfew, but responsibilities, i.e. get out of bed and
that's right.
get stuff done. And having a couple of teenagers in the house now, I understand that, and so work on that zenness of like, okay, well, it isn't a farm, and nothing's gonna die, and it's not raining on the crops, so okay, we'll get to it. So that formative upbringing, I think you'll agree, Michael, the space is such a beautiful thing. Nature is such a beautiful thing. Moving the body is such a beautiful thing. Having people around you, community, the farming community, your own, I'm the youngest of 6 kids in 8 years. So we were our own community. And that sense of always knowing it was safe, and it was active, and it was healthy. We were living off the land, and organic farming before that was a thing. So those are so deeply ingrained in me. I've tried living in the city a couple of times, and it doesn't last too long. I need to be able to see that sky and that sunset and sunrise you were talking about. Mm-hmm. So those drove me to really move in those spaces and live in those places that are still so important to me. And it's what I support people with often as well. Like the adventure side of the coaching is just like, no, we don't need to be sitting in the boardroom. We don't need to be sitting, obviously if we're not regionally connected, but even then I'm like, no, I don't need to see, I know what you look like. Let's put the headphones on. You go for a walk. I'm going for a walk. Let's get out. So that's deeply ingrained. The work ethic was one of those things that is sort of a bit of a double-edged sword. It has gotten me everything that I've, it was actually really beautiful in traveling, and I think you can attest as well that willingness to help out without looking for remuneration or an immediate return of any sense has really had people care for me then. And I was well taken care of around the world, and in my travels, it was just so immediate, and I see that in my children as well, that they will just dive in and help because there's work to get done, and they don't need to wait to be asked, and that sets us up well in life and in leadership and in business. Where it becomes a challenge is when we live with these expectations of ourselves.
Yes, right.
I don't sit down. I don't pause. I don't stop. And the list will never be complete. Yeah. But on one hand, I enjoy that, but then I lament about when I see my kids aging, and I have spent a lot of time and never missed their sports and all things like that. There's certainly things that I would have enjoyed to do more with them, and less pressure on, we got to cut the lawn, we got to weed the garden, we got to clean the roof, we got to shovel the snow, we got to on and on and on. And then it's the same in business with staff, and I work with my partner, and that pressure for everyone else to perform as much or as often as I am, that creates a disconnect between people. So it's, having the need to temper that is important also.
Yes, absolutely. And I was thinking of Marcus Aurelius, and talked about how what stands in the way becomes the way, and how I had this conversation with another. He was more senior than me, worked for a different broadcasting company, and it was, I think it was a Friday night or a Saturday night. There was a hockey game that we both had cameras at, and he was there because he didn't have any staff that he could assign to go get some B-roll of this hockey game. And I was there because I liked going to the hockey game and I needed B-roll for a project. So we were both there, and we talked about the difference between the have to and the get to. So for him, it was the have to, and for me, it was the get to. And can you talk a little bit of reframing tasks as to the more positive side of looking at that obstacle or the way?
Yeah, beautiful. And that's such a great reframe, right? And if we look at those things, all the things in our lives that way, or at least analyze and assess, if it's on my list or my plate and I'm the only one that can do it, then let's use that mindset of I get to. But we also want to look at, how do I simplify, eliminate, delegate,
yes,
and get it off my plate. But if those things aren't possible, then yeah, that's a big level of acceptance and patience. Something that I've had to work on, from the dishes to the finances in the business, and to recognize. And we talk about this. My wife shares this as well, about that, like, whoever said it wasn't going to be this way, that we wouldn't have to do this. Like, where did I come up with that idea or that expectation? Because now we're just putting stress on ourselves when we think that, well, I shouldn't have to do this. Why is this on my plate? Maybe a little bit like your friend was doing, but it's, a real sense of, how am I being while I'm doing?
Yeah.
And so again, weeding the garden, I keep pointing over here, that's where the garden is. But, I take that now. I don't, there used to be pressure and stress and, everybody eats it, and the kids would hate coming out to the garden. And now I I just go out there and I'm happy to see little weeds, and I talk to my plants, and I put some, a podcast or a audiobook on, and I'm in the sunshine and having a beautiful time. And so I get to weed the garden now,
Yeah, that's right. And the plants that come up, they can really tell the story too of the soil. And it's kind of like the human heart, the garden soil. It both produces things. That lived experience of being on a farm, and we're talking about gardening, and man, green thumbs abound in my family. Thank the good Lord himself. But can you maybe share with us an experience that you had of growing up where you didn't run to the store? It's like my mom would be like, "We don't buy butter, we make it."
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there something from your past that you could say, well, this has really stuck with me in a good way because of what it taught me back in those days?
I will answer this from my perspective. My wife would have a very different perspective, but as farmers, we don't throw things away.
Yes.
There's always going to be a use for it. And we've got these hundreds of acres, so there's space for it. And that's a bit of a mentality, I think, that can move over into, staff and other relationships, things that we have created and produced, or just even, to move beyond this consumerism and this castaway society. Yes. And so I have all sorts of things that I keep, and I see really funny videos about this that people will send me because they know it's so me, and they're like, oh, I need this, this chunk of wood that's this big and has this shape, and then they go running off and looking through all their bins and stuff, and yes, I knew I would have this at one point. Need this.
Happy days.
Yeah. And so I think there's something about that, seeing usefulness in things that many might pass away and or give away, or it's just not recognize what's fully there. And we can push up again. Like I've been in that place with staff, and it's like, oh, it's not working. They've got to go, and I'm like, wait, what have I done to fully support that person, to know how to support us, to serve us, to be the best at what they're doing? Is there anything more I can do? And we've seen people turn around just by, let's have daily checkpoints. Let's make sure we're in alignment. What are we looking for? Where do you feel stuck or unclear? Little things like that is just like, let's find value.
Yeah, that's really good. I appreciate that you're mentioning this part of that agrarian life, and I think back to my parents of that extreme resourcefulness and that bartering. So we had no pigs, but my parents liked pork. Well, we didn't buy pork. We just traded some lamb or some beef or milk or something. And what a wonderful way to grow up. But that extended, and probably because of the Christian roots of my parents as well, but it extended to them seeing value in people that others did not see value in. I need to mention the Schmolenskis. They were an older couple. They lived probably 5 or 6 miles, 8 miles from our house. And the social workers knew they could bring anyone to the Schmolenskis, and they would foster or adopt or whatever the case was. They were amazing people, the age of my grandparents. When we take that idea into the working world, the business world of, I even remember having bosses that wouldn't see the value in somebody that had been hired, and they would just be frustrated, probably with other things, but all of their frustration would be focused like that magnifying glass trying to burn the ant with the rays of the sun on this one staff. And you'd be like, come on, let's just, if he's a grapevine, let's just dig around him, fertilize it. Let's see what we can do with him. Can you talk to us about then that seeing the value in people that we might have disdain for, or we might, just not see the value in?
Yeah. First of all, Love the Schmalenskys.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And what a gift to grow up in that environment, like for you to be near that. And as you said, with your mom and your parents, for us to be exposed to that kind of care, I think is really critical, especially as men, especially as farmers, because empathy, we might get into that, but can really be kind of squashed. That value thing. And I can talk to you about a real example of someone who was supporting us. And I was just that's what I was thinking of when I was just speaking. And then in a broader context from a lot of the people that I end up coaching, these senior leaders, and they'll have the poor performers. And as you were sort of describing that frustration, it's us feeling harm. It's our mind constantly working on us. It's us going home and telling our partner about it. It's us sitting on our commute and thinking about it. And it's a little bit drinking the poison, hoping someone else will die.
Yeah.
But it's also, we're creating that harm for that person as well. They know they're not liked. They don't feel supported. They're going home and talking to their partner. They're sitting on their drive saying, I don't know how to win. And I think, I get chills just thinking about it, that we don't, oftentimes we don't have that empathy for that person's experience. And it's not until we will pause and ask ourselves, so first needing to get over our own hijack, because we're in fight, not usually flight or freeze. Sometimes freeze maybe, but we're usually in that friction point, and bringing that energy then toward that person, as you were saying, so they're not feeling good and competent and contributing member of the team. And so of course they're not going to win, because they're in a fear state. They're in a flight state, right? So we're all in amygdala hijack, and the work isn't getting done. And so our ability to recognize that within ourselves and take care of ourselves and get back into connection about, what do I need right now? And it's calm. I need to quiet the mind. I need to get outside. I need to breathe. And then we can get to a place of curiosity, Michael, where it's like, what is going on for this person? Where are the actual things that they're getting tripped up? Because we can what's the word I'm looking for, but make it like all the time and everything, and if we zero in on an individual situation where we felt triggered, then we have the ability to go and we can narrow in on, Michael, what was going on for you right there? Because remember, we had talked about, these reports and how I like to have those delivered and stuff. And when I got this one again, this was omitted, or it was laid out counter to that. What was and again, you hear my energy. I'm not like, what the hell was going on with that? Why did you do that?
That's right.
Because that's what they're used to hearing from me. But it's like, if I bring that, I've taken care of myself. I've regrounded. I'm like, I just want to know, do you remember us having talked about that? And they're like, oh yeah. Sorry. And then, so what went on with this one? Well, and then they will actually iterate what was going on. And it's like, okay. So you thought this, or that thing got in your way, or these people were screaming at you for this. It's like, oh, okay. So now we're building connection, and now we can support that person. And then all of a sudden, as with on our team, that person becomes an incredible supporter and a raving fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. There was that old book about building your tribe, creating raving fans in terms of clientele and retail customers, but never thought of it in terms of your staff actually being raving fans of each other.
Mm. It's beautiful. Like, the team we have are and we see it in other places with these leaders who have that level of care, but they're our number one fans, and they just want to do it's almost to a fault or a harm for themselves, because it's like, okay, stop working, go home, don't stress about this, don't think about it in the evenings and weekends, because they care so much. It's about the work that we do, and about us, and wanting to see us us win and grow and stuff. And so it's really beautiful to, like, they're great people, like, on their own, but they have just grown with us in lovely ways.
Yes. And I want to talk to you about the non-harming leadership, because it is so much different than 20 years ago, and then just add on years, because there's been a lot of disgruntled bosses and business owners. And, you think of like, just for the 1900s, that 100 years of the wars that were there, and people having to be involved in wars and famine and other things like that. And then the world gets better, and they get jobs, but their whole experience has been harm to themselves, harm to their families. And we really need mind renewal. So this non-harming leadership, of helping leaders to reduce the harm that they experience and that the harm that they create. And, the Bible talks about every seed produces after its own kind. And you and I were talking about gardening, and we would never plant corn expecting rutabagas or potatoes. And so what does it look like when a well-meaning leader is unconsciously creating harm within their company or their family?
It's all the time, right? And let's genericize the term leader as well, because we're all one.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Unless we're off in a cave somewhere on our own where we don't have interaction with any other human. If the definition of leadership is the influence and impact I have on the people around me, then we're all doing it.
Yeah.
And so how we show up matters. And so for those folks that are creating harm, it's so important to see we're coming from a place of harm. We're coming from hurt, and the whole hurt people concept, right? And so often unknowingly or unintentionally. But even when we know, the challenge is we don't know what to do with it, because it's all we know. Because as you said, my grandparents were raised during the war, and my parents were raised during the family, or they were immigrants and came with nothing. And there was just hardships they had to endure, that this is how we operated. And so there's that's that sort of generational trauma now of, don't talk about it. Don't think about it. Don't feel it. Just do, just go. And I think so many of us have, are of that lineage, and it is shifting. But I think the important thing that all of us, and that I really try to focus my work on, is to recognize that there is something going on inside of me that's having me show up that way. And if we can bring the consciousness to that, then we can play a little bit of psychology. And it's like, so who are you showing up like? Oh, dad, mom. Or I'm trying to be the opposite of. And so we can go for a moment to childhood, and we do, those formative years, and it's not to make excuses. It's just to understand it and then own it, to take responsibility for it. And so now that I recognize when this happens, like when I ask the kids to come out and weed the garden with me, or when I ask that person for that report in that way and I don't get it, and I feel this like, there's my canary in the coal mine, right? But we don't notice it, because that thinking that, like, oh, I can't believe they did it again. That's just the water we swim in. That's the normality of their thinking patterns. And so we react from that place without first taking care of that energy that's already triggered the amygdala hijack within us.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I just before you and I started recording, I was recording with a fellow by the name of David Roy Newby, and your 2 episodes will come out around the same time. And he was talking about when he's dealing with his billionaire or multimillionaire clients, like all of their problems is what's going on inside. And we tried to assign my problem to that guy right over there, Phil. And and so it's like, oh, we got to look inside. And so a part of that, I think, is then suppressing emotions instead of dealing with it's not Phil. I realize it's something inside me. Can you talk a little bit about that? How maybe we have to assign the true spot, the true culprit, and that little bandit wearing that the mask to the actual place instead of trying to put that onto a worker that we're positive we don't like.
Yeah, that externalizing, right? Mm-hmm. And I lean on in my own self discovery, and with a lot of the men that I coach and stuff too. Just Dick Schwartz's work, internal family systems.
Yeah.
So there is that little boy in there that's just hurt and scared or angry and trying to protect us in some way.
Yeah.
And so again, this is that sort of double-edged sword about our upbringing, where there were things that were very useful with it, that way of being, whether I was hiding under the bed or standing between fighting parents or beating up that bully.
Yeah.
That allowed our survival. That's why we're here. But it's now showing up in that same fight or flight response that isn't serving us. That's still now, that's a harm. And it's not necessary, and it's not, as that work goes, it's not like we're trying to get rid of that part or cut it off. Is to embrace it and understand it, and acknowledge that we're going to move beyond that now. I know what to do differently. I have the tools and the resources and there is no threat. Phil is not a threat to me.
That's right.
So what is actually going on inside of me? And that's that deeper work that I really, really love and is so useful for leaders.
Yeah. And then men, let's say men, because you deal specifically with men, and I realize it's for the ladies as well, but you get told to like suppress your emotions, maintain your focus, and just execute. And what is that then, the psychological and the operational price that a business pays when the staff are really emotionally suppressed?
Yeah. The cost is apparent. We see it in organizations, and we see the ones that exceed and excel. And you'll go in and you'll see, the culture starts at the top, right? And it's those leaders who are creating the environment where people feel safe to make mistakes, to voice when they disagree. And if I haven't learned a way of non-reactivity or acknowledging my inner reaction and dealing with that in a healthy, non-harming way, then those reactions are what creates an environment of people walking on eggshells. And it's like, ooh, I'm not gonna put my hand up again.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And so entropy, disengagement happens, and people, their presenteeism, or they just file off and do their own thing, or they, it's micromanager. No point me doing it. The boss is going to just change it anyway.
Yeah. Right.
And so if we don't have that connection as a leader to what's going on within us, then we're disallowing others to have that as well. And it creates this entire environment, which it used to be, as you were kind of describing, right? Remember the statement, like this feeling, there's no place for emotions at work.
Yeah.
Like, so what do I do with them? How do I hide those? By and large, we were pretty good at it, but we erode until we explode, right?
Yeah.
And then one day, if that person shows up late again, or the bottom line isn't where I had hoped it would be, or there's another person walking out the door, it's actually, it's most often rooted in a fear, Michael. There's a fear response that is coming up as anger or isolation or something.
That's right. Yeah, that we need that perfect love to cast that fear out, because like fear is just so pervasive. And you were talking about either those old ways of leave your emotions at home or somewhere else. Just don't bring them here. And so then, people take care of those emotions with pharmaceuticals or alcohol. certain physical activities that are completely illegal and we shouldn't be doing, right? And so men often will struggle with reading their own internal, let's say, metrics before they, I can either blow up or I can shut down. Which one do you want today? And what is a practical physical cure for the men folk out there listening who they can look for these red flags, maybe to realize that emotions are being hijacked, or he needs a better way of using those emotions.
I love that. Yeah. And that really is where it starts. There's something in the body that happens. Marshall Rosenberg's work goes observations, feelings, needs, requests. And so and when I'm coaching, I'll do that. We'll revisit a situation like the Phil situation, or like with my staff that I was talking about. We'll do the work to go, okay, what was the exact moment? And usually it'll be like, well, they always do this, and you won't believe, and da da da. I'm like, okay, but one, like, narrow in. Well, they were really angry, and da da da. I'm like, okay, but were they angry, or how were they talking? Like, what were the actual words that they said? And so we'll, with some refinement, we'll get down to the moment, and we'll recognize. And so I've added a few letters to Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. So after the observation, there's a thought. What's my reflection? And it's almost always imperceptible. So what was I thinking as soon as Michael did that, or didn't do that, or said that, or raised his eyebrow, or whatever? He doesn't trust me. Because then there's a feeling. That thought creates an emotion within the body, thinking, and then there's a dump of like a little emotional cocktail that sends us into some sort of hijack. And that feeling, to name that feeling, again, we have not been educated on this, but we've got, the NVC cheat sheets that we can look at. I'm telling you the long version. I'm going to bring down to like a practice that all us dudes can do in a moment. If we can name the feeling, and underneath that feeling, and first, usually for so many of us, it's frustration, anger. And so the shortcut is usually that. Then there's the S. So Marshall Rosenberg will go to a need, but what's the sensation in the body? So where do I feel the feeling? And I'll get people to put their hand on that place. And so guys will usually know that. Where does anger show up? And my head gets tight and hard, my shoulders lift up, or my stomach gets all knotted, or my, something, my back. And it's like, where do you hold that pain? So that is one of the things that is a kind of a shortcut for us. What are the patterns that cause that? Oh yeah, so when my kids get off the bus and they drop all their stuff at the front door, I just get this like, or when that person does that thing, at work, or and so there's that sensation in the body then tells us there's something that's important to us that we need to do right then. And so if I have a need for calm first to get over my amygdala hijack, because that's just a first level. So like I was saying earlier, we need to get back to our prefrontal cortex and our rational thinking, our connectedness. And so to do that, we need what is, and then we come up with strategies. And if I'm in a meeting, then it's like the best I can do is the breathing, shifting the mind for a moment. Or like when I'm, on retreat with the guys or something like that, I bring the push-up bars and we do state change like Tony Robbins talks about. We drop and give me 20, we move the body. And then we can, and once we've done that, we've made, so that's the request. Would I be willing to take 3 deep breaths? Would I be willing to go outside, walk around the garden? Would I be willing to do 20 push-ups? That's first level. The second level then is what is going on between us that actually caused, what was the stimulus for my frustration in the first point? So we can go back, okay, it was at that moment. And I realize, front door, I have a need for just, yes, it's tidiness, but it's just ease actually at the end of that. Like I don't want to have to walk around your stuff. I don't want to have to deal with it. And so the request then to the child is, when you come in, off the bus at the end of the day, would you be willing to put your shoes on the mat and put your backpack over here, take your lunch bag out? Michael, this is and it's like in all things of life, this is not a one-time conversation. It's like a 100,000 time conversation, right? So we have to foremost keep doing the work for ourselves, because if I'm going to get frustrated that 100,000 times, then I'm just dumping that cortisol, that adrenaline into my body. And so we're again drinking the poison, literally, right? We're aging, we're increasing our blood pressure. And so in short answer to your question, pay attention to the patterns where I get triggered by something, by sadness, by fear, by disappointment, by loneliness. You can pay attention to the other side. Where do I get triggered into joy and happiness and fun? But then to notice in the body what that feels like, because then that can be, and 9 times out of 10, it's going to be, I need calm. And so if we can just achieve that, if your listeners here can just achieve that, then we have a pattern interrupt of like, oh, and our filters aren't there because we never learned this process or emotional intelligence and emotional regulation in any way.
That's right.
And so to be able to feel it in the body and say, okay, yep, there it is. My chest or my throat is feeling constricted. That's right. I remember I'm just supposed to take 3 breaths. Okay. And then we can keep practicing. Lesson 2 after that.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been having a great conversation with Trevor Stevenson, and we've got a comment section. We love to hear your comments through these episodes, and sometimes maybe you don't want to write down something, but hey, that's a safe receptacle for your thoughts, that comment section. And so while the listeners are thinking about their comments, Trevor, how can people get in touch with you?
TrevorStevenson.com is kind of the easiest. On LinkedIn, I think it's Trevor Bryce Stevenson. You'll see me there as a human dynamics specialist. I organize and design retreat experiences for people in groups, especially those groups like EO and YPO and Vistage and McKay CEO forums, that already signed up for a personal development and growth groups.
Yeah.
And know the advantage of getting out and experiencing adventure and play while also doing the deep, meaningful work. So those, and if people are on Instagram, I'm at Fun Road to Freedom.
Nice. Now, and this is a great jumping off point, because we've been ticking a lot of boxes in the first part of this conversation, and really getting down to the nitty gritty of the why and the what. But I want to ask about the how. Like, how did you decide, or what was that road that led you maybe to do the fun and the fundamental and that adventure coaching?
Those were, I think, both born out of a little bit of pain, probably, pain of upbringing and wanting to get away from the farm.
Yeah.
And the path that everyone was taking, and unfortunately still are, is, well, I guess I go to university, I'm done high school, don't know what I want to do, but I guess I'll do what everyone else is doing. And that thankfully didn't last very long. So there was a courageous exit. And then I started moving towards fun and doing the things that I loved. And that sort of lasted a decade and took me around the world. And like I was saying, some of that work ethic just made that possible. And I found my way onto guiding adventure experiences like overland tours in Africa and deep sea fishing and diving and sailing on different crewing yachts. And then coming back, like in that time as well, having such a deep understanding and connection with different people from all over the world and seeing similarities and differences, but also recognizing sort of what makes us tick, what shuts us down. And that began the campfire coaching, sitting around with whoever was up still at 2 a.m. or something. And coming back and having met my partner, and we started this business together. So that was sort of one life part compartmentalized that is like such a deep integrated part of my soul and who I am. And then this coaching business and leadership development that we've now run for almost 22 years brought those skills of supporting people to different places and teams and groups. And then I worked with youth along the way as well, with that passion for shifting the way we do bring children and youth towards meaningful lives for themselves. So the standard education system isn't the only way. And so founded and ran a nonprofit in that area for 8 years. And then, through my own journey of my becoming a parent, becoming a homeowner, downturn in the economy, business owner with my partner, and the stress that is inevitable in those things, and needing to continue to grow in different ways, I realized there were a lot of men who were struggling with similar things who would start opening up to me. And so 2.5 years ago now started Fundamental for my continued journey and to support them. And we just have a great group of guys all over the world who are just have that safe space then for real conversations, and we have fun and we do hikes. And if we're local and things like that, then we can get together. But I also, my kind of that holy grail was bringing those two worlds together of my adventure and travel with the deep coaching. And so doing trips where I combine the wellness practices and lead yoga and journaling and such. And then we go off and we hike volcanoes, or we ride motorbikes, or surf, or paddle, or whatever it is. And then we come and we back, we in connection, we move through this work of self-awareness, emotional intelligence, communication skills, and empathy and care. And then that just flows out into everything we're doing on these trips. And it's the guys supporting each other. And so that's really what I love about that ability to be out, and like that armor we were talking about earlier just comes off, the masks, that hard shell. And we're just, so whether it's a combined group in one of these sort of CEO forums, or whether it's a group of guys, it's always the same. When everybody loves to play and explore and adventure, and it just takes a little bit more time to let the preconceived notions of what's okay to sort of melt away.
Yeah, absolutely. And so thinking back to the younger you, when you started the traveling and the guiding, was there an experience that you can share with us that still sticks out in your mind of, I was this person before it, but because I met these people or was in this place, I was transformed or changed for the better?
I think of a good one. There's a few jump to mind about, near deaths and things like that, but I don't think they're the ones. I think just being entrusted, Michael, for who I was. The reason I ended up in those places of whitewater canoe guide or on these overland trips is because people saw in me that light, that care, that fun, that zest. And so to be entrusted, as this foreigner, to come and hop on the truck. We want you to be, part of the team. That really built my confidence to show up as myself, to show up authentically. And I think when we look for those opportunities, and it was a big part then of the nonprofit, is helping people show up as themselves and recognize the value that exists there, and creating something meaningful for yourself based on that. Is it the David Thoreau quote about don't ask what the world needs, ask what brings you alive, and do that because that's what the world needs.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that was sort of, that was, as I reflect on it now, really meaningful.
Yes. And then what was that? Was there an instance where you said, wow, I actually need to I need to turn this into a business and bring some other guys together so they can experience this as well.
Not in those days, I was, I did want to, I knew I wanted to sort of carry on in that. And it was interesting because I was just talking about this the other day with someone who was in the nonprofit with me. And my first vision for the nonprofit was, well, I'm gonna get one of these overland trucks and put an ad on Facebook targeting 17, 18-year-olds, which is when that big decision needed to be made, and say, hey, we're going to Africa and let's figure out life. And the partner who kind of, or the mentor who kept listening to me and inviting me back to clarify this, the vision, had suggested, well, maybe we should build the program first. I'm like, it's not a bad idea. But it ended up then that we continued to develop programs, because when we developed it at that 17, 18-year-old age, then we realized, those people have already kind of been sold the path. They've already made that decision. So we made the program for 16 to, 16, 17-year-olds, and then built programs for 8 years because we realized the need from 4-year-olds through 20-somethings. Because then the 20-somethings were coming out of that education path. And it's like, what about me? I don't have a clue. I just went through and I just dropped, 80 grand, and I still don't have a clue. And so we were working with them. But I never, when I came back from travels, this business happened in sort of a really beautiful and serendipitous way. And we'd never heard of like this business coaching. It's like, wow, this is amazing. Let's do this. And, so it's been a wild ride, and like, I couldn't be more happy to, have experienced it, but it wasn't so like, I guess I just knew that I would be I had a passion for people and helping them recognize and hone their greatness.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how that was going to come out.
Right. So could you share with us a story maybe of someone that came on a trip with you, and somewhere along the way they said, wait a second, you mean this is why I'm this way?
Yeah. There's lots of those, and I love it. And it's kind of like the guys talk about, their 2.0 version.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's as you were saying earlier about, was it Phil?
Yes.
It's like, it's not about the Phil. It's not about your wife. It's not about your kids. It's not about the economy, right? It's like, my anger is my anger. And it's like, and there's a ripple effect to my anger or fear or whatever it is. And so that is a big, so the most beautiful and amazing thing that happens through my coaching is that people realize that they are the creator of their own mental space. And that mental space has a large influence on everything that happens around me. It doesn't mean it's going to save my marriage. But if my marriage isn't saved, I'm going to be okay. I've actually never felt better, and I'm having different conversations, and it's from a different place, and it isn't changing that person, or it isn't, changing those results in that area of my life yet, but I'm feeling well, and I'm really happy with the impact I'm having on the people around me. And then that changes. It does change all of our relationships. It changes our business results and everything. And so that is the big shift that we love to see, that people build that confidence that no matter what happens in my world, I know I'm going to be okay. I can deal with it.
That's good. That's almost like coming to, not necessarily coming to terms, but getting to that spot where you say, oh, I can have joy in all circumstances.
Yeah.
And
that's that fun road to freedom concept,
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And, man, what a wonderful conversation, and great to hear of the circumstances that have happened because of our proximity to other people, or because of where we've placed ourselves. We really can find out those root causes and then uproot them. And before, I know we're getting close to wrapping up, but we've talked about the education system, and it is financially onerous, whether it's, whatever level of education, it seems like there's a cost, and then we're not always happy with the outcome. Can you talk about, and normally, I want to do some research on a question, but this is like a total audible, even education of children, that's really the foundation for their lives. And has your idea or opinion of education or modality changed through the years? And especially now that, you've got a couple boys and they need to be educated.
Yeah. I suppose it has, by way of like, I had always known through my own experience, first of all, this is ridiculous, chaining us to desks again, especially boys.
That's right.
And then, you've got your hour that you're allowed to move and be outside, maybe.
Allowed.
Yeah. Yeah. And that nobody is really asking us the questions about our interests and skills and passions. And it's like, oh, well, okay, you're pretty good at science. Maybe you should, check biology. And this school's pretty good at it in their province. So, yeah, I guess apply there. And, here's a second choice. And like, that was our guidance, little guidance into the world. So I've always seen that and had issue with that. And then moving into this space and this work and understanding my own experience and the challenges, just that the system really lacks the educational component of emotional intelligence, about communication skills, about how to be with ourselves and our emotions, and that those emotions are okay and fine, but sometimes the reactions and the strategies we choose based on those emotions are not okay. And how then to care for ourselves when we are triggered as a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 12-year-old, and then what to do with all of that. So I just feel that is, really missing, and then we see it in the world all over in our marriages and in our political leaders and all sorts of places.
Yeah. And it almost seems now like, so we've got the red team, blue team, and I totally get the left and right wing they're on the same bird, but it almost seems like who can indoctrinate this child with my with my ideology before anybody else? Who can get to that person? And it's like the legislated utopia. We're just gonna legislate utopia instead of utopia starts inside of us. Before it comes out, and
or dystopia, as it were,
or dystopia. Yeah, if you have dystopia inside, you'll have dystopia outside. And what is it? We're kind of ending things off and getting close to the hour mark. Any thoughts that you'd like to share with us as we're closing up?
I think patience, Michael. The work is never done. So don't expect it to be. But continue to look within and accept, what is reflected back to you. And Danny Michel has a great song called "Don't Be So Hard on Yourself." Because a lot of us can feel like we're failing because we don't know how to do these things, and we have created harm. And the way forward is really for us to. You kind of said it in a different way, but sort of the only way out is through.
Yeah, right.
And so to listen to these podcasts, but then to ask yourself, what's one thing that I can take away, that I can implement, that I can try? And maybe it's just naming that feeling in the body. Where does anger find me? So what does it feel like? And what do I do with it? And if you take nothing more, then I know where it is. That's my canary in the coal mine. And that just tells me I need 3 breaths and maybe to walk away, and I'll make different decisions then.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And so you mentioned a song, and the other day I was at a funeral for a former coworker's child, and I was thinking about the Floggin' Molly's song. Today's been the worst day since yesterday, and sometimes that is how life feels. But there's better songs, better radio stations, and all of that. So. Yeah. Trevor, what a wonderful and powerful conversation. Thank you for showing us that that real courage isn't about just following this strict blueprint, but it's about finding, I think, our humanity and being accountable and having the strength to lead with care. So thank you so much for being on the 5 a.m. podcast today.
Such a pleasure, Michael. Thank you. And yeah, it's been really, really nice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, what a great conversation. We're just missing the diner and the lemon meringue pie and the cup of coffee or something.
Don't even tease me. Oh.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, to the 5 a.m. community, thank you for being here. And if today's episode has challenged you a little bit, maybe piqued your curiosity, and perhaps you're a leader, you're looking to ground yourself or sharpen your emotional intelligence or your skills, head over to Trevor's digital home base. You can go straight to trevorstevens.com. And right there on the front page, you'll find everything he's up to, the ways to get in touch with him, a massive vault of free resources designed to support you exactly where you're at. So we'll have that link in our show notes and descriptions, of course. And so before you tackle the rest of your day, if you've gotten value out of Trevor's insights, please share this episode with a friend or a brother or colleague who needs to hear a little bit of fresh air and a little bit of fun. And remember to hit that follow button for the 5 a.m. podcast, wherever it is that you listen. So as we say, when we seize our days, we seize our futures. And please get out there, enjoy those sunrises and sunsets and all your beautiful adventures in between. I'm Michael Klassen, and I'll see you on the next 5 a.m. podcast. Thanks for watching the show. Just a reminder that you can get all of our resources, other episodes, and read our blog posts at 5ampodcast.com.